Did Wilder's adolescence spent describing people, places, and scenes for Mary contribute to her development as a writer and storyteller years later? Look at this passage from By the Shores of Silver Lake and make up your own mind. The road pushes against the grassy land and breaks off short, and that's the end of it, said Laura. It can't be, Mary objected. The road goes all the way to Silver Lake. I know it does, Laura answered. Well, then I think you ought to say things like that, Mary told her gently. We should always be careful to say exactly what we mean. I was saying what I meant, Laura protested. But she could not explain. There were so many ways of seeing things and so many ways of saying them. That sounds like a writer to me. And years later, Wilder's daughter, Rose, who was also a writer, told her mother, "You make such perfect pictures of everything." Indeed, Wilder's ambitions to become a writer very likely began in Dakota Territory. I chose the word ambition deliberately. Why? Because Ambition was the title for Wilder's first composition, a piece that won her praise from her beloved schoolteacher, Mr. Owen. Here is the first paragraph of the composition as Wilder recreated it. Ambition is necessary to accomplishment. Without an ambition to gain an end, nothing would be done. Without an ambition to excel others and to surpass oneself, there would be no superior merit. To win anything, we must have ambition to do so. In fact, the real Laura Ingalls did write a composition on ambition. As she explains in Pioneer Girl, I wrote my whole composition from a dictionary definition of ambition, closing with a quotation of Shakespeare. Cromwell, I charge thee, fling away ambition. By that sin fell the angels. Now, let's be honest here. Countless students over the years have built their essays and compositions around dictionary definitions and quotations from Shakespeare. Wilder's composition isn't especially imaginative or original. What was important for her, however, is that this piece of writing brought her recognition and praise. Mr. Owen validated the value of Wilder's writing and its potential. It was so important to her that Wilder actually saved her original essay. It is now part of the collection in the archives at the Laura Ingalls Wilder Home and Museum in Mansfield. But on a deeper level, praise for that essay reinforced perhaps a more personal and private dream that Wilder began to nurture during those years in Dakota Territory, to write her own book someday. In these happy golden years, Wilder created a scene that plays with this idea. As we've discussed earlier in the semester, when we looked at this passage in a different context, when I first read this passage, it really sent ripples up and down my spine. I'm planning to write a book someday, Mary confided. Then she laughed. But I plan to teach school and you are doing that for me, so maybe you will write the book. I write a book, Laura hooted. She said blithely, I'm going to be an old-maid schoolteacher like Miss Wilder. Write your own book. Of course, readers of the book know that the real Laura Ingalls Wilder went on to write book after book after book. Looking at that scene now, however, it provides insight into what may have been and what may have fueled Wilder's drive to become a writer. As early as 1902, 9 years before she started writing as a columnist for the Missouri Ruralist, and 30 years before the publication of her first novel, Wilder began making notes about story ideas. Among her earliest, an episode about that winter on Silver Lake. Dakota Territory inspired her right from the beginning. But good writing begins with lots of good reading, and Wilder was a passionate reader during her adolescence. She lost herself in stories, as she noted in her memoir. Great stories they were of beautiful ladies and brave, handsome men, of dwarves and villains, of jewels and secret caves. Of course, Wilder didn't write fantasy when she actually turned to fiction. She wrote about her past. But all those beautiful ladies and handsome gentlemen must have inspired her. And the reading taught her to be a better writer. While living in De Smet, Wilder also began to write poetry. Most of it, frankly, isn't very good. But one entitled The Difference reveals that even as a teenager, Wilder was interested in the subtleties of vocabulary and what vocabulary can reveal about character. This is what writers care about. Let's look at a few lines from one of these poems. My neighbor and I can never agree, kind reader, be judge between her and me. I go to school which she attends, in which I have chums, and she has friends. She works difficult problems while I do hard sums. She says it continues while I say it runs. I think it's also important to note here that one of Wilder's strengths as a novelist is her simple, strong, concrete vocabulary. This gives her writing much of its power, beauty, and drama. Even as a schoolgirl in De Smet, she appreciated the strength in clear, concrete vocabulary. Also in De Smet, Laura had her first brush with a professional writer, Mrs. Brown, the stepmother of Wilder's chum, Ida. Mrs. Brown wrote for church publications and was what Wilder called literary in Pioneer Girl. But Wilder wasn't impressed with this working writer because she neglected her personal appearance and her house was always in a dirty disorder. Years later, when Wilder was writing for the Missouri Ruralist, she frequently provided her readers with tips on improving their personal appearance and running a cleaner, more efficient household. Apparently, Wilder believed right from the beginning that professional women should and could have it all. The last of Wilder's novels published during her lifetime, These Happy Golden Years, ends in 1885, and Wilder gives the fictional Laura Ingalls a happily ever after ending. Laura has married De Smet's most dashing and eligible bachelor, and they sit together on the front doorstep of the new house which he has built for her. They feel prosperous and contented. Twilight faded as the little stars went out and the moon rose and floated upward. Its silvery light flooded the sky and the prairie. The winds that had blown whispering over the grasses all that summer day now lay sleeping, and quietness brooded over the moon-drenched land. The true West, the Dakota Prairie, is a character in this important closing scene. The prairie binds Laura and Almanzo together and promises them a happy future. Together they've conquered the West, made peace with it, and faced their future together there with hope and optimism. It's a wonderful night, Almanzo said. It's a beautiful world, Laura answered, and in memory she heard the voice of Pa's fiddle and the echo of a song. Golden years are passing by, these happy golden years. However, the real Laura Ingalls Wilder, as many of you know, didn't enjoy this happy golden future in the West, as Wilder herself notes in her memoir. But that's another story anyway, and we'll take it up later.